Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. This webinar will cover the rescinded nationwide waivers and current regulatory requirements. Due to the number of attendees, everyone has been muted upon entry. You can ask a question at any time by typing your questions into the Q&A panel on the right side of your screen. Please reach out to your SFSP rep for any specific questions to your program. After the presentation has concluded, it is important that you do not exit your WebEx browser, as this will simultaneously disconnect you from the teleconference. If you are accidentally disconnected, just log back into WebEx and rejoin the teleconference. An archived version of today's webinar will also be posted on the Child Nutrition Knowledge Center website at a later date. USDA's Food and Nutrition Service recently released a memo, SFSP 1-2019. This memo, which can be found on our website, rescinds 6 waivers previously granted to the Summer Food Service Program in response to a recent audit conducted by the Office of Inspector General. These flexibilities will no longer be available to Summer Food Service Program sponsors. We will go over all the requirements for SFSP that are no longer waived. The regulation that refers to the requirement is on each slide for your reference. At this time, SED is not seeking any statewide waivers as a result of these rescissions. All sponsors must visit each site during the first week of operation. This includes all SFAs and CACFP sponsors of at-risk centers. You are not required to stay for the entire meal service for the first week visit. It assists in improving your site's overall integrity. This is the most opportune time for sponsors to ensure complete meals are being served, trash receptacles are in place, civil rights posters are up, and that sites are adhering to the approved meal service time. This is also a great time to identify whether or not your meal times need to be changed or whether or not your site needs more signage. Offer versus serve can only be implemented by school food authorities. SFAs implementing offer versus serve must follow the National School Lunch Program meal pattern. SFAs following the National School Lunch meal pattern in the summer will have to continue to follow all guidelines, including age grade groups, vegetable subgroups, calorie restrictions, etc. It may be difficult to accomplish this at parks and pools. SED recommends following the SFSP meal pattern and not implementing offer versus serve. 3 hours must elapse between the beginning of one meal service, including snacks, and the beginning of another. 4 hours must elapse between the service of a lunch and supper when no snack is served between lunch and supper. The service of supper shall begin no later than 7 p.m. Supper may not extend beyond 8 p.m. The duration of the meal service is limited to 2 hours for lunch or supper and 1 hour for breakfast and snack. Time restrictions and meal duration requirements do not apply to residential camps. Supper still must begin by 7 p.m. and end by 8 p.m. At the time of renewal, it will be necessary for sponsors to enter the days of service and meal service times for all sites that will be in operation. Please be sure to leave yourself some extra time during the SFSP renewal to complete this. Non-school sponsors who purchase meals from a food service management company can no longer use the bulk food waiver. Since non-SFAs can no longer implement offer versus serve, the complete unitized meal with all components must be provided to each child. Sponsors operating closed-enrolled sites must establish eligibility by obtaining either an income application or school certification letter stating the child is eligible for free or reduced school meals. At least 50% of the children enrolled must qualify for free or reduced meals. BEP data can be used to qualify closed-enrolled sites if the individual school's ISP multiplied by 1.6 equals 50% or greater. Census data may not be used to qualify children at a closed-enrolled site. The USDA recently released a follow-up Q&A to the Rescissions Memo, which can be found on our website under 2019 Memos. The answers provided are there to assist in explaining the impact of the Rescissions program operations. NYSED is currently seeking additional guidance from our regional office for clarification on some of the information listed. We will continue to update sponsors on this material as soon as we receive a response from USDA. We should be able to provide you with this information for our upcoming training sessions in March and April. Meals may not be claimed for reimbursement that are served outside of the SED approval date. Sponsors may not extend categorical eligibility to Job Training Partnership Act or reinforcement investment participants that are 18 or younger. In summary, sponsors may not waive site visits during the first week of program operation, utilize Offer versus Serve unless they are a school food authority following the National School Lunch Program meal pattern, use the bulk food waiver if they are non-school sponsors who purchase meals from a food service management company, qualify closed-enrolled sites for the summer food program using area eligibility, receive reimbursement for meals served outside of the SED approval date, or extend categorical eligibility to Job Training Partnership Act or Workforce Investment Act. Sponsors must adhere to mealtime restrictions and meal duration requirements. As a reminder, forms for documenting the site reviews can be found on our website in the NYSED Attachments Manual. Attachment 43 is for the first week site visit, and Attachment 44 is for the 4-week site visit. Information about waiver requests may be found in the memo, Child Nutrition Program Waiver Request Guidance and Protocol, found on our website under 2018 SFSP Memos. Please reach out to your program representative for guidance in regards to the template to ensure all required information is included. SED will review waiver requests prior to forwarding to USDA. A sponsor must be in good standing with SED to submit any waiver requests. Now that the webinar is concluded, we are going to take a brief moment to analyze some of the questions. We will return with your answers in just a moment.
Okay, so we're going to begin to answer a few of the questions. For anybody who wants to request a waiver for their own sponsoring organization, the waiver request can be found on our website in the Summer Food Service Program area in the 2008 memos. So yes, you can request your own waiver to implement Offer versus Serve. New York State is not requesting statewide waivers at this point. It's been our observation that most sites in the state of New York would benefit from a first week visit. Oftentimes we get on site and the information provided from the sponsor is not consistent in regard to meal service times or even sometimes the site location. So if you were to do this site visit, you would be able to correct these findings as soon as possible within your own community and then make SED aware. It's also important is in regard to Offer versus Serve, you'll be receiving a good amount of reimbursement for serving all the components to children. If there are a population of eligible children, it's probably really important to provide them with the best nutrition possible, and that would be providing all components. We're going to pause one more minute to get some more questions. Questions. June 1st is the program renewal deadline, and while we're discussing this, for those listening, and you may want to spread the word, training is mandatory for all sponsoring organizations this year. However, the updates webinar that's being presented on March 14th, as well as May 10th, and the potential new sponsor webinar will all fulfill the training requirement. Question about offer versus serve can be implemented only by schools. However, if a school chooses to implement offer versus serve, they must continue providing the National School Lunch Program meal pattern, and that means all the age grade groups need to be provided for the population of children you'll be serving, as well as all the meal components and then the fruit veg subgroups. The meal breakfast time can be no longer than 1 hour and 2 hours for lunch and supper. There must be 3 hours from the start time from breakfast and lunch. That was a question. So if breakfast starts at 8 o'clock, lunch cannot be any sooner than 11 o'clock. So there needs to be 3 hours between start time. Somebody asked about the community eligibility provision. That's the CEP. And for those who want to use it, if they're a non-school sponsor, we've reached out to our regional office for additional clarification on this. But if you're a non-school sponsor, we can help you with the ISP for individual schools in which you're drawing your population from for a closed enrolled site. So we will be able to help you with that here in our office. More questions will come. For clarification, this webinar does not fulfill the requirement for training for the summer food service program. This is just an addition to help people understand the rescission memos the rescission memo that came out in September. Somebody wants to know if they can still operate their open site at a YMCA. Yes, so long as it still qualifies as an open site, you can continue to operate the YMCA as open. Also, if you're running an enrolled program, the question is for a program with grades 9 through 12, drawing in students from multiple districts, you will need to have something confirming the student's income eligibility. If you don't have that because they're not coming from your district, you're going to have to get that eligibility from the districts in which they go to. You can actually ask those schools to confirm the students' either free or reduced income eligibility. Once you have 50% of the children that are enrolled in your program as income eligible, you're good to go as closed enrolled. Somebody wants to know if there's other information about this webinar. So this information will be covered again in the mandatory training that will start, that we will begin presenting March 14th. So it will be covered again. We will put this webinar on our website, hopefully soon. So that's available. And the actual memo about these rescissions is available on our website for you to review. We have a lot of questions coming in about the way programs run their own individual programs, which you may be better off calling the representative in your office, to clarify your questions about your own program. Just so you know, the mealtime rescission does not apply to camps. For those that may have tuned in late, the PowerPoint presentation is over. We are taking questions now. This information will be covered again in the mandatory training and webinars that will begin March 14th.
The link on the last slide is incorrect. The correct link to get to the memo is www.cn.nised.gov/summer food service program, and the request is under the 2018 memos heading.
For camps, supper must begin by 7 p.m. and end by 8 p.m. For camps that are offering supper, the meal service must end by 8. So CEP, the community eligibility provision, is something that schools use to qualify children as income eligible in the schools. So for our sponsoring organizations that are not schools, for your questions about this, we're going to ask that you reach out to your program representative in the office to help guide you through the CEP and the ISP numbers to help you qualify your closed enrolled sites. The meal service time limit for lunch at an open site or a closed enrolled site is 2 hours. At this point, we've answered all of our questions that are here. For anyone who has additional questions or wants more clarification, please feel free to reach out to your program representative in the Summer Food Service Program office. And we will be out doing mandatory training, so there'll be more opportunities to answer your questions. Thank you.